To see the latest render we've taken, just click on the frame buffer section over here. The frame buffer section shows the latest render we've taken. Guys, look, in the render we've taken here, the light sources we used shouldn't be visible in the render. So normally it should provide light, but it shouldn't be visible itself. Guys, to turn it off, we go to the asset editor here. We're going to the light section. In the options section of the rectangle light 2 tab here, we check the invisible option. Look, it's visible here. When we turn it off, it won't be visible anymore. So this part here is the same as the section in the scene, guys. It will no longer be visible in the scene. Now, there's an important part here. I want to talk about that. Normally, you can turn any surface, any material into a light source. There are two ways to turn something into a light source. One way is here. Look at the mesh light in the menu. Let's turn the object over there into a mesh light. Guys, let's say we turn the circle in the statue's hand into a mesh light. There is an important difference between mesh light and making any light source any color. A light source, for example, look at the render. This part is made with a different color. And look here, it became an LED lamp with LEDs. It's providing light itself automatically. For example, I select the color here and the eyedropper tool there. I selected the color. Look, it says Emmisive on it. When I go to the asset editor and say Editor V, guys, it says Emmisive here. This is the color. This is the intensity of light that has been given to it. But there's a difference between this and convert. There's a difference between mesh light. The difference is this, guys. Normally, the light here is artificial. What does artificial light mean? Let me explain it as a system. It means light that is not included in the physical light calculation, the light calculation in the scene. But when we convert it to a mesh light, it gets included. Where do we see that? When we create a mesh light, we see it in the light menu over there. It will be visible. The lights that appear in the light menu are high quality lights that contribute to the render, guys. If it doesn't show up, it will remain as a somewhat artificial light. That's all you need to know. Now, I went here and I'm going to make this part a mesh light. Guys, look, I selected it. Look, it's dim here now. Do you see it? Normally, I need to select a group and a component. Look, it becomes active as soon as I select dim. I selected it. It drew a line around it. I came here as a mesh light. Look, it has now appeared as a mesh light here. Let's make this a bit blue from the color section over there. If you want, let a property be different. 11,000 Kelvin. What did I bring this for? Intensity 30. In the options section, look, this way being invisible prevents it from being invisible. But we want the light source to be visible. As you can see this way, if you set it to double side, friends, it gives light to this side of the surface and also to the other side. I set it to double side. I wanted it to give light on both sides, friends. Now let's take a render of this again and see. Look, I brought the render section right in front of me, and I'm going to take a render from here. Let's see what kind of render we get from our settings by clicking on Render. I came to the frame buffer. I clicked on the render button here, friends. Actually, my settings are currently on high. The render time, actually, we are working with past render. We are working with progressive render. As you can see, our HDR in the background is quite well set up. Our mesh light here is also sitting at 30 lines. If we want, we can make this 100 to provide even more. We can make it provide light. The reflection values on the ground are visible. The white on the wall. Our wall is processed this way. You can also use the glare wall sections within these window parts. Friends. Yes, friends, as you can see, our render came out very clean and nice. Look, I activated the denoising section here, friends. Of course, since we are taking a progressive render, it's normal to see some blotches here because we are getting the render quickly. Look, there are some blotches here. Those are light blotches. When we take a normal bucket render, we will get a render as clear as glass. The light inside is really at a nice consistency. Our HDR in the background is also compatible with this scene. I will give you this HDR. Since the landscape has a slight elevation, it looks like a floor plan on that elevation. That's why it turned out to be a nice HDR. In this section, you can set the mesh light value to 100 instead of 30. To do that, you come back here again. Look, in the light section, the mesh light is set to 30. Let's set this to 60 or 100. Friends, we would increase the light operation a bit more. And it will also have an effect on this dark area here, friends. It will be, friends.